she said, I love fairy tales. I said, girl, you don't need to be here. You need to be back in the safe bosom of your parents' home.
She would be a great bachelorette.
You came to Love Island. They're going to make you suck cake off of a man's toes, baby. This is not the place to come for fairy tales. Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. Love Island USA has taken America by storm. At face value, it's a show where objectively gorgeous singles are tasked with finding their perfect match. But what I've noticed is that this show is more than reality TV. It's a microcosm of our dating culture, who we love, our norms around dating, and what is and isn't acceptable behavior. I spoke with awards editor at IndieWire, Marcus Jones, and Jonquilyn Hill, host of the podcast Explain It to Me, to wade into the discourse of Love Island and why we can't stop watching or talking about this show. Jonquilyn, Marcus, welcome back to It's Been a Minute. It's good to have you both back.
It is great to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have y'all here. You don't even know. This is like, I wait for this time of year all year round. So I'm just thrilled to be here. We're going to be discussing Love Island, yes, but really more so the discourse around this year's season of Love Island USA, which it's interesting. But the two things that make Love Island, I think, really like grabby for even for people who are super into reality TV already, are that like the editing style is hilarious. It has this it's like much more wry and funny than you would expect, and they pick up on all these little different idiosyncrasies and sort of like in between moments of like everybody in the cast. And another big thing that I love about Love Island is the discourse around it. I mean, because you are unlike like I always say, like, I don't know, Love Island, it's like the narratives end up being really, I think, in a way richer than a lot of other reality TV shows, because they're not just like highly producing and filming a bunch of stuff like for 6 to 8 weeks and then cutting it all up later and deciding what the storylines are in advance, right?
Yeah.
No, we are watching these people sort of plod along day by day. We see genuine friendships emerge. We see like genuine romantic feelings emerge. And also too, like, because you're clocking in with these people every single day, you could start to see when some people move a little dastardly. And I think that makes for really rich and fun discourse around Love Island. But I wonder, how would each of you describe the discourse around Love Island USA this year?
Ooh.
Okay.
I will say, I think one of the things that's interesting about Love Island is it starts around the time the end of the NBA Finals. And I don't think...
You're so right. I traded one for the other.
I don't think I realized it until this year. A lot more straight men are watching this season.
Yeah.
And I think that has created some interesting discourse. And I think for a long time, Love Island USA, it's not just for women, but a lot of time it's for the girls. And there's a lot of stuff entering now that is not just for the girls. And it's made the conversation, I don't know, a little different this time around.
I definitely see that. What are you noticing, Marcus, in this year's Love Island USA discourse?
Yeah, for some reason, the words that came to mind were like, guards, get them. Like, these people are like...
Trespassers.
Yeah, but it's sort of, I think the first thing they do is introduce us to the contestants. And from the very starting point, there were already people who didn't make it into the house because people's first reaction was, what kind of dirt can I find out about these people before I like invest any time with them? And on one sense, I get the intention. On another level, like, really can't say that's the first thing I would do. I don't really watch a TV series with sort of my phone out trying to research every one of the contestants' lives. Like, I like I'm just trying to pay attention to what's on screen.
I agree. I don't necessarily, I don't want to go on like a fishing expedition for like who should get like yanked out.
And this is not to defend that behavior.
No. But
like,
I get what you're talking about.
Right.
You're talking about the impulse to, as soon as you learn like a possibly soon to be famous person's name to go on like a digging expedition.
Yeah.
There is something about that impulse to sort of like, I don't know, to constantly be on some sort of like search mission that does it. It's giving surveillance state. It's giving surveillance state.
I was going to just say, like, the point I was sort of making in bringing that up is that I think Love Island gives us an opportunity to have some really healthy conversations about sex and dating. And I really love that aspect of it. What I haven't appreciated this season, and especially last season, because I think it all stems from that was a cast of characters, season 7. But it's starting to feel like there's this default to receive things or receive people in bad faith. And so it's treating it like, this person is on Love Island. My first impulse is to see what's wrong with them. And that, my first impulse is to enjoy myself. We're in Fiji. Let's go.
We are in Fiji. Yes. They are in
think
Fiji and so am I.
I think in a way, I was actually saying this to a friend because she watched a recent episode and she did not like the vibes in the villa. She was saying, "Oh, this is not good. This must end.
Yeah.
I do not like the way these people are acting." And my response was, "This is some of the best television I've ever seen."
Okay, so I'm glad you bring that up because it's like a really great opportunity, I think, for us to discuss sex and dating. Chances are, if you are watching this video or if you're listening to this episode, you are decently versed in what generally is happening on Love Island. But to give you just a short, sort of quick rundown, there are a bunch of sexy singles who are in a villa and they're trying to find their best match so that those matches compete. And then the couple that America likes the most ends up winning $100,000. It's a good opportunity for them to make money. The longer you stay on the show, the more money possibly you could make because America falls more in love with you. And so sometimes, though, the men on the show act like they forget that they're being recorded. They are making disparaging comments about the women, putting that, like, you know, some women down so that they can maybe perhaps have a chance with others. And they're moving in a way that a lot of people describe as very incel or red pill. And I have to say, there are some sort of like patterns of behavior and communication. Like production has sort of pulled out a bunch of stops to give the women on the show the opportunity to adjust their behavior by being like exposed to maybe things that the guys didn't think that they would see. And it's made for great television, as you have both pointed out, but also there's it's attracted all these straight men who typically are not watching the show and who are emboldened by some of this kind of misogynistic and kind of pig-headed behavior that we're seeing from the men on the show. And it has started a discourse on discourse on discourse of defending some of the guys' worst behavior, things that like are really just unacceptable in real life. They're trying to sort of twist around and find ways to explain away.
Oh, yeah. I would say the big conversation that I've seen are around two islanders, KC and Aniya. I was very big on them individually going in.
Me too.
There you see sort of an anxious and avoidant pattern play out, and you see people's response to that. You see someone who is people pleasing, and you see that the way that people pleasing can actually be harmful and hurt feelings and cause the person who does the people pleasing to have resentment. And just the response has been wild to see. Just the amount of digging hills in, the amount of behavior that is bad that people will defend because, you know, maybe someone was not their best self earlier on. That's been very wild to witness.
Yeah, I mean, also too, like it has. I feel like it's also like I should mention, for those who may not know, KC and Aniya are both Black people, but these are two of like the darker skinned people in the entire villa at the beginning of the season, and in some ways throughout the rest of the season. So then you've got like colorism conversations. You've got Are men trying to humble women high value man conversations, hashtag black love conversations, hashtag swirl agenda conversations that are happening. That maybe before, not to say that none of these things were being talked about. These conversations are not new, I think, to the discourse. They're not new to the discourse around the show. It's just who's participating in them and how that has been really notable. Marcus, what have you been seeing?
I think to the point that you're getting about sort of the new crowd, is a bastardization of this idea that the point to be on the show is to explore your relationship. Everyone's saying, oh, if someone moved on to a different person, isn't their right to explore? Isn't that the point of the show, to test your relationships? And if someone new comes in and you get along well with them, then it's your right to recouple with that person. And I think particularly the difficulty in the KC and Aniya relationship is sort of a broader thing of, this is the third season in a row where the dark-skinned black woman representation in the house saw the man that they had the strongest connection with go into Casa Amor and then bring someone back. But the difficulty of this part is that we are seeing a situation where the communication just wasn't there. I mean, people are saying anxious, avoidant. I think my personal take on Aniya is that she had an inkling that KC wanted to explore, and the conversation that she was trying to have with him was, don't look at me as the obstacle in this situation. If you want to go explore, please explore, because I know that if you don't do what you kind of clearly want to do, even if you're not explicitly saying it, you are building up resentment towards this connection. And we see, as soon as he leaves the villa,
and
the
he goes
shocking
to Casa
part
Amor,
of it.
They pump in, for those who don't know, like Casa Amor is like a portion, it's like a part of the season.
It's the ultimate test.
It is spectacular
relationship test.
Yes.
Where they
whole new
separate
set of
the
girls.
women.
Yeah.
They put the boys in this place called Casa Amor, which looks kind of like a different sort of version of the villa, where typically they're all living together. The girls stay in the villa. They pump new girls into Casa Amor. They pump new guys into the villa. And everybody has the opportunity to explore or test their relationship and their faithfulness.
There's a respectful way to explore, and that's sort of the building block of the show, is that this is like ethical non-monogamy island. It's your moment to date multiple people and test the relationships. And the thing that you have to do that we really haven't been seeing this season is approach both parties and tell them what's up.
But yeah, I mean, and every year it's the same thing that happens. The guys go to Casa Amor and they treat it like a bachelor trip. And then the women stay in the villa, and they actually have full, like, they're also allowed to explore and do what they need to do. Like KC, this guy, he brought this other woman back to the villa, and we've got Aniya who's standing there alone, which creates this whole opportunity for humiliation, and all of her anxieties, I think insecurities really bubbled up. And she had some people fighting for her, but there were also some people who were like laughing at her. I mean, it's kind of a nightmare scenario. Now, just being real, it's a nightmare scenario she could have avoided. I just want to say that she could have avoided it.
Say, canon event. It just is unfortunate that the canon event
happened to her on TV. Like, I wish it had happened on a college campus. I really
that's supposed to happen on the floor of your dorm room.
Aside from like what's happening on the show, how have you seen this sort of changing audience like affect the discourse that's happening as we're seeing this relationship between KC and Aniya in particular play out?
So I think people are defending KC by saying like he has a right to explore. And so it's like, oh yeah, well, like he built her up and then it's his right to move on to the next girl. Like he found a better connection. Well, that may be the case. It's not his right to build her up to her face and break her down behind closed doors. And I think a lot of the reactions were celebrating like, oh, like KC's found someone who sees him as a prize and like found someone to build him up. And it's these conversations about like dating from different socioeconomic statuses and a lot of projection onto this
because
couple.
Aniya's from like a pretty well-off family. Her father was
the
a
class
professional
thing
athlete.
is so, oh my God, like no one has really talked about it. Aniya's friend Melanie hinted at it a little bit when she was giving her pep talk, where she was like, hey, you're gonna have to build that man up. But I think class difference, that's the conflict, and no one in the Villa is talking about it. We're talking about it, but no one in the Villa is talking about it.
It's kind of like this perfect sort of storm of all of these different like dating expectations, dating stressors, dating drama, but also, like you mentioned, sort of intraracial class, colorism, featureism, desirability discussions.
I think that's a lot of it. I think a lot of Black women, in particular dark-skinned Black women, they want to see a love story that they are centered in. They want to be picked. They want, like, hey, give me the romance, give me XYZ. And if I'm keeping it a buck, I think part of the reason that's why KC initially went in and was rocking with Aniya, because it was like, well, we're about to give you that. We're going to be Serena and Cordell Part 2.
They won season 6. They're still together, adorable couple. But I wonder, what kinds of conversations do you notice coming to the fore as a result of the way that the competition tends to shake out, and the position of dark-skinned Black women on the show, both on this season and traditionally? Like, how do you think that affects the way people process the show, digest it, talk about it?
I mean, I think the narrative with Love Island in particular, UK included, was just a lot of concern of like, it's great that you are able to do this diverse casting, but have you found men that are actually interested in dark-skinned Black women? And that's always kind of a conversation. Even with the Bryce and Trinity coupling, I think for a while people were watching that with their guard up of like, is he actually interested in Trinity? And I think people who have left the house have made missteps in commenting on that relationship. But I think even past sort of the interracial aspect, the game of the show, they've been kind of playing right. They have been exploring and testing their relationship and finding each other again in a really respectful way. And so like, I think that adds to their popularity as well, is that it feels like they are genuinely like doing the show the correct way. And I think that plays into it a little bit.
I think there's an inherent skepticism that a lot of the audience has going in. KC did this speech at the beginning of the season where he was telling Aniya, you're this beautiful dark-skinned woman. You are the blueprint. When you're a Black woman, I think of you. And honestly, I thought it was really sweet. But I went to Howard.
At the time, I don't trust him.
I went to Howard where people argue in the bathroom about slavery. And I also know guys from California. A Hotep man from California loves to be like, oh, my African queen. Okay, like he sounds like every engineering major that I met my freshman year, if we're being honest.
But it's sort of like I said with the audience expectation, we're looking at KC and Aniya like, have we found the next Serena and Cordell? Right. And we're looking at Bryce and Trinity night one, like, I really hope he's genuinely interested in Trinity in terms of thinking about the racial aspects of the show.
I've seen people accuse either like it's specifically this year with Bryce and Trinity. Bryce, I mentioned, is a white man. Trinity is a Black woman. They make it, I think, a very cute couple. They seem like they have great chemistry, right?
They really like each other. I get the vibe that they really like each other. I do too. I think they think they're both funny and they have a key and they get to gossip in bed together and they miss each other when they don't get to do that.
They seem like they have a nice relationship for the sake of the show, like within the context of the show, and I believe it and I'm enjoying watching it. But there's accusations of both of them that they're scamming or sort of back into the idea that like nobody could possibly just love this woman or like her just because, which I find really nefarious.
I think there's a lot of projection that the audience does. Like we all do it. Like I see Aniya crying on the ground and it's like, oh, dang, I've been there, girl. Like, oh, like, KC, you can't get away with this, like that sort of thing. But I think a lot of people project their own feelings of like, oh, I'm not desired and I'm going to project that onto them. Or, oh, if Aniya had been sitting up there with Carl, I could only imagine the discourse. KC would have gone off the edge. I think a lot of men project themselves onto KC. I think they project themselves onto KC. Here, it's very Lawrence from Insecure coded, where it's like,
oh no, yeah,
you think you're a good guy, but you're actually not, and it's a lot of like, he's trying his best. Like, what do you want? Like, he's not doing anything wrong. And it's like, whoa.
But I mean, something that I wanted to get back to was, like you were saying, I think it is one of the things I enjoy is that there's a lot of dark-skinned Black women who have become the fan favorites. I think on the flip side, some of the darkness of the discourse or the cruelty is like, through these trials and tribulations, people are being like, oh, I'm watching my Sims and here's the gallery, like add Aniya to the group of photos of Black women in the confessional, like
who've been crying,
having a mental breakdown. And it becomes it's this memeing of the situation. And so I really don't appreciate this idea that, like, oh, for her to move through the show successfully is her to go through, like JQ mentioned, a canon event in a way. Like, I am happy someone like Aniya or Janae or Alandria is in the house. I'm not happy that their experience is like feeling like they're being dogged the whole time until the right guy comes in.
Talk to me about sort of like how you've seen some of this red pill rhetoric show up in the discourse around the show.
Yeah, I think with KC, it's sort of the support that, like, oh, Aniya wasn't behind my door. In the first episode, people sort of express their preferences after a quick game.
They had this game in the first episode where they, like, you had to show your preference for either a certain thing or an event or eventually a certain person by standing behind a door. There's supposed to be women or a woman standing on the other side of that door who wanted to get to know him better. When he opened up the door, nobody was there. That did not happen for any of the other men on the season. That did not happen. That did not happen for any of the other men on the show at that moment. I imagine that didn't feel great. He has been talking about, though, the fact that no one chose him.
Like, it's been on his heart.
Time. It's been like a month.
Like, it was not until like maybe the last week or so that I realized, oh, you're still thinking about that. Like, that was so long ago.
And keep in mind, he ended up with Aniya, who faced a similar rejection. Aniya was behind a different guy's door. The guy did not choose her, and that's how they coupled. We have not heard Aniya speak any resentment toward Sincere picking Melanie over her and her ending up coupled with KC. But that is a similar rejection that her and KC faced. But I think that it's become kind of the skeleton key of like, oh, you weren't going to make it last with any of these girls because no one chose you from the start. And you're very interested in TT because this is a person who is like serving herself on a platter to you, basically saying like, you're the person I'm interested in. I know what your boundaries are and your asks are, and I'm going to meet them immediately as possible. And I think his has been more subtle a journey than Zach, who we should really talk about. But I think KC and Zach are the two where there's villains this season, Corbin, Sincere. But I think when you get into sort of the red pill mentality, it's the way in which KC and Zach are speaking about the different relationships.
Zach is like getting intimate with, his, longtime partner in the house, Kada. And, while they're intimate, he's saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. But then the next morning, he's like, oh, ha, ha, ha. It was just a joke. I'm just kidding. Like all of these weird sort of like he negs her in certain ways. There was one day he refused to make her breakfast because the girls had done something very benign that he didn't like. And so he punished her by not feeding her breakfast. I think that KC and Zach are very good examples of this sort of like, wanting to seem like a good guy on their, like at face value. But the actual behavior is a lot more insidious when it comes to how they are interacting with people on a one-to-one basis.
Zach is also, I think he's a bit of a game player. His brother was on the previous season. So I think that also, and he knows how to play the game and how he should come across. And you can see him freak out when the mask does slip because he's like, oh no, I'm gonna look terrible, like this is not how I get to the finale, all of that. But I think the amount of women I know who are like empathizing with KC, and sometimes I'm like, am I tripping? Like, what am I seeing something you are not? Like, what is going on?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, a lot of this feels like to me like, I don't know, a lot of the sort of factions that we're seeing and discussing the show, and sort of like I think a little bit of a sour or sourer turn that we're seeing in discussion around Love Island this season. It feels to me, and this is just me guessing and projecting because I have not been a part of the dating scene for over a decade at this point.
God bless.
It seems to me like a lot of this is just refracting our broken dating world back to us. But I don't know, like not just like in what we're seeing on the show, but in the way everybody's reacting to it. Like, what do y'all think about that idea?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It really is a reflection of what dating is like. And I think, I'm very much a millennial, straight up middle millennial, born in the 90s. I do not touch Gen X. I do not touch Gen Z. Mm-hmm. And I do think for like younger folks, Gen Z folks, it's even bigger reflection. Like you can tell, oh, these are people who were in high school during the pandemic. Oh, these are people who have been watching streamers and podcasts and just come up in a different situation. But it 1000% reflects it. I do find, I think women I know who are in relationships and have been in them for a very long time, like have not been in the trenches for a very long time, I think are more likely to empathize with KC than with Aniya. And I think it's because they have not gone on a date with a man and been asked the question, what do you bring to the table? And I think if you are in the trenches, it can be triggering. It can be like,
I'm sorry,
get them out of there.
Did they really ask that? Did they really ask that?
It happens.
Probably, yeah. A certain brand of man.
A very particular. It's a good way to weed out, to be like, no, I want a real person and not an internet discourse. But it does happen.
What's scary about these younger contestants, I think, is I'd say one, it's sort of them constantly wanting the upper hand and sort of this like dominance play, but it's not conquest in like a number sense, like when it was like the pickup artist type culture growing up. Yeah. It's almost like a conquest of the self. It's like sort of whittling down someone who, although like say someone would describe Aniya as a high value woman, she still bends the knee to KC. Like it's sort of the hypocrisy of like, I'm here to explore, but I want to only be with someone who is obsessed with me, and I want to be the center of someone's world. And so it's that weird aspect of it that feels like so pernicious, of like, it feels like you are breaking your partner down, and that's so not needed.
And I will say there is a little bit of the red pill on the girls' side. Like sometimes the stuff they say about masculinity, sometimes the things they say, it's like
there was a whole day where people were like, so are you dominant? Would you consider yourself more dominant? And it's like,
it's that.
What do you mean?
Now, I will say, as a person, like I do like my doors opened. I do love to know, be
Casey
on the inside of the street. And if you say like, hey, these things are important to me, hey, don't nobody do that no more. Oh no, I don't.
Well, and that's kind of what Casey did at the beginning of the season, right? I think like he asked Aniya what she wants in a relationship, and she said, bless, I really mean this with all the kindness in the world, bless her little heart. She said, I love fairy tales. I said, girl, you don't need to be here. You need to be back in the safe bosom of your parents' home.
She would be a great bachelorette.
You came to Love Island. They're going to make you suck cake off of a man's toes, baby. This is not the place to come for fairy tales. I think it's fine for people to not agree. Like Casey didn't agree with her in that moment. Oh, that he's not interested in a fairy tale. That's fine. I mean, I'll be honest. if a man told me that he wanted a fairy tale, I'd probably stop talking to him, because I'm like, what do you mean by that? Are you going to save me? You're going to lock me in a castle? Like, what are we talking about? However, what she was expressing is shorthand for some sort of high standards, and his first instinct was to knock them down until he's like, well, I don't really want to do that. Maybe, but I could do basic stuff like open doors or whatever, but I'm not going to do this other stuff. He immediately started negotiating with her to lowering her standards, which is a tactic that, is not unfamiliar to either, these manosphere training programs.
Yeah, I mean, it felt really build her up to knock her down.
Yeah.
Yeah, build her up to knock her down. I love the point that you made, Marcus, about sort of like it's like a power play. Like, who's going to be the person who's the most powerful in the situation? What's the point of being so rigid in how we talk about finding love or connection?
I think dating, and in particular heterosexual dating, is in a very chaotic transition period right now.
Transition from what to what?
I think for a long time, men's role in relationship was, okay, what can I provide? Women need me to survive because they can't have bank accounts. They're not going to be able to make their own money. They're not able to, their careers to go as far. Right. And that just isn't the case anymore. So I think it's a question of, what does love look like when you're not needed, but you're wanted? And I think both men and women struggle with that, because at the same time that, you can say, hey, like, men, we need you to be more in touch with emotions. You need to be more in touch with XYZ. It can still be a thing was like, well, do you have money? What are you going to provide for me? What are you going to give? And I think there's a real push and pull we're having right now between what love and relationships have been in the past and what we're about to walk into. And I don't know what we're about to walk into, but I think a lot of that negotiation is happening in real time. And I think millennials, Gen Z, and probably Gen Alpha too, like, we're going to be the ones kind of figuring it out in real time.
Yeah. What do you think, Marcus?
Yeah, I think there's a real issue with everyone kind of looking for an idealized version of a partner, but not willing to do the communication to kind of find that compromise. And so I think that is kind of why I've been enjoying Love Island too, is that they're literally forced to have this real communication that we're not seeing a lot of people their same age have. It's sort of chasing this idea, and if you don't immediately check the boxes, like, on to the next one. When real relationships, it's like, okay, I don't know the 100% of you are up front. Let's talk about sort of what our wants, whether we want a family, these types of traditional things, even sort of our preferences with sex, and kind of get to the same page. And I think as generations goes on, less and less people are willing to do that work. Everyone kind of wants everything up front.
That is such a good point. It's like there's, we've talked on this show sort of about like this idea of like, just the desire for a frictionless existence. And so many aspects of our lives have become frictionless. We all are so used to things being, not all of us, but in many ways, we're used to a lot of things being a lot simpler than they used to be, a lot like less, just more frictionless than they used to be. And yet connecting with and building something with another person, like a relationship, it cannot be, you can maybe grease the wheels a little bit, but like, you really can't, like, you can't fast track it. There's nothing that you can do to hack it. And I think that that's sometimes, to y'all's point, like, people are trying to categorize, they're trying to judge, they're trying to evaluate, and whittle their options down. But I don't know, when you whittle your options down, sometimes you can get left with nothing. But I don't know. I mean, a lot of dating commentary, and this is a thought that as we were developing this conversation, our producer Alexis shared, which I was like, this is so genius and so true. It's like a lot of dating commentary, and what we're seeing, it dehumanizes people, like the people that we're trying to connect with. And That feels like what we're seeing at play right now and the way people are talking about Love Island. But oh my gosh, Marcus, JQ, thank you both so much. I had the time of my life talking to this.
Thank you. You're like our Ariana Maddox.
That was awards editor at IndieWire, Marcus Jones, and host of Explain It to Me, Jonquilyn Hill. And to all of you watching, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Be sure to come back to this feed every Tuesday for a fresh video episode. You can watch these episodes exclusively on Spotify, YouTube, and the NPR app.